You have a good salary. You should be fine. You are not fine. And the most unsettling part isn't that the money disappears. It's that it disappears so consistently, so predictably, so quietly, that it almost feels scheduled. Because it is. Let's paint the picture. You negotiated. You got the number. Maybe it wasn't everything you wanted, but it was respectable. It was enough. You did the mental math in the shower the morning after you accepted the offer, and for approximately 4 days, you felt like you had figured something out. Then the first paycheck landed, and after taxes, which somehow always arrive as a surprise despite being completely predictable, and after the health insurance deduction, and the pension contribution you signed up for because the HR person said it was the responsible thing to do, and the parking, and the whatever else they quietly extracted before the number even reached your account, the figure looked different, smaller, familiar. You adjusted. You always do. You told yourself it would balance out. You'd be more disciplined this month. You'd cook more. You'd cancel that subscription you keep forgetting to cancel. You'd stop the random online purchases that feel like rewards for surviving the week. Which, to be fair, you did survive, and that should count for something. It didn't balance out. It never balances out. And now, several months or several years into earning what you once described as good money, you are doing the same mental gymnastics you were doing when you earned half of this. You are not broke in the dramatic sense. You are broke in the quiet, respectable LinkedIn profile sense. Employed, stable, financially anxious at 2 a.m. If that sentence just described your life, stay with me, because what I'm about to explain has nothing to do with your spending habits and everything to do with how the system was designed. And if nobody in your life is connecting these dots for you, that's exactly why this channel exists. Subscribe to Joe versus the System, because this is one piece of a much larger picture, and I'm not done pulling it apart. Here's what they never tell you. Your salary was not designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you functional. There is a precise, measurable difference between those two things, and the entire corporate financial ecosystem is built around maintaining that gap. Wealthy means you have options. You can leave, you can wait, you can say no. Functional means you show up on Monday. That's it. That is the entire design goal of your compensation package. Not comfort, not security, not freedom, just enough. Just enough to need the job. Just enough to not quite afford to leave it. Just enough to keep the math almost working, so you stay focused on making it work rather than questioning why it doesn't. You thought your salary was a reward. It is a mechanism. And the machine it operates is not your life. It is their business. Let's talk about how this actually works, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. There are 3 systems running simultaneously that are each independently designed to absorb your income. They don't coordinate with each other. They don't need to. They are each just doing what they were designed to do, and what they were designed to do happens to leave you with nothing. Not taxation as a conspiracy, as a structure. The way employment income is taxed versus the way investment income, business income, and asset income is taxed is not an accident. It is a policy choice, and that policy choice consistently favors people who make money from money over people who make money from working. You, with your salary, are taxed at the source, automatically, before the money touches your hands. You have almost no control over this. The wealthy individual with a holding company, a portfolio, and a good accountant has enormous control over when and how they are taxed. This is not illegal. This is not even hidden. It is just the structure. And you are at the bottom of it. This one is partly cultural and partly engineered, and the engineering is more deliberate than you want to believe. Every time your income increases, the market, which has been watching, adjusts. The apartment that was advertised to your income bracket, the car that feels appropriate for your professional level, the wardrobe, the restaurant tier, the holiday budget, the subscriptions that feel like basic adult necessities now but would have seemed absurd to you 5 years ago. You didn't decide to inflate your lifestyle. You were sold an upgrade at every income milestone, and the upgrade always costs slightly more than the raise. That's not coincidence. That's pricing strategy. At some point, probably during your early 20s, possibly earlier, someone handed you access to credit and called it a tool. And it is a tool, just not yours. Debt is the mechanism by which your future income gets purchased today by someone else. Every time you carry a balance, you are paying for the privilege of spending money you haven't earned yet. And the interest is the fee the system charges for letting you do that. Student loans made your education feel affordable. Car financing made your vehicle feel affordable. A mortgage made home ownership feel affordable. Credit cards make everything feel affordable. But affordable and free are not the same thing. And the difference between them, that gap, is being collected quietly every single month by institutions that understood compound interest long before you were taught to understand it. Which, and this is the part that should make you pause, you were taught to understand it quite late, in a class you probably don't remember, after you had already signed most of the things. Funny how that works. So what happens if you just keep going? You get a raise. The lifestyle adjusts. The tax bracket shifts. The debt feels more manageable for about 3 months. Then the car needs something, or the rent goes up, or the interest rate changes, or you need new glasses, or something entirely reasonable and ordinary happens because life is full of entirely reasonable and ordinary expenses, and the buffer you were building evaporates. And you start again. This is called the income treadmill. Not because you're lazy, not because you're irresponsible, but because the treadmill was built before you arrived and the speed was set in advance. You can run faster. The belt adjusts. 5 years pass. 10 years pass. Your salary has grown considerably. Your net worth has not grown proportionally, and you are now doing sophisticated mental gymnastics, EAS, pension projections, the vague plan to sort out investments at some point, while the foundational structure of your finances remains exactly what it was when you started: income in, expenses out, not enough left. Repeat. The promotions didn't fix it. The bonuses got spent. The raises got absorbed. And somewhere in there, you stopped asking why and started asking how to budget better, how to cut back, how to optimize within the system, which is exactly where the system needs you. Here's the concept that reframes everything. There are two types of income. Active income is what you earn by showing up, by trading time for money, by performing a role that someone else defined, inside a structure someone else built, in exchange for a number someone else decided. Passive income is what you earn when your money shows up instead of you. Now here is the uncomfortable gap. The entire education system, school, university, professional development, is almost entirely focused on making you better at generating active income. Better qualifications, better performance, better skills, better salary negotiations. Nobody teaches you systematically how to make the transition from the first category to the second. Not because it's impossible, not because it's illegal, but because a population that generates passive income is a population that can afford to be selective about where it works, how long it works, and under what conditions. And a workforce that can afford to be selective is significantly more expensive to employ and significantly harder to retain. So the education you received was not designed to make you financially free. It was designed to make you financially productive for someone else. This is the part where you have to be honest with yourself. What have you actually been optimizing for? Not in theory. In practice, you have been optimizing for income, not wealth. Those are not the same thing. Income is a flow, money moving through your life on a regular schedule. Wealth is a store, money that accumulates, compounds, and eventually generates its own flow. The entire system, the corporate ladder, the salary negotiations, the performance reviews, the promotions, all of it is designed around income, getting more of it, keeping you focused on getting more of it, because the moment you stop optimizing for income and start building wealth, real, asset-based, compounding wealth, you start becoming less dependent on the flow. And less dependence on the flow means less dependence on the job. And less dependence on the job means more leverage. And leverage, in a system built on your compliance, is the one thing that system is not designed to give you. You have been playing a game called Earn More. The winning move is a different game entirely, called Need Less of Theirs. And confusing the two is how decades of good salaries produce surprisingly little financial independence. So what actually changes things? Not budgeting harder, not cutting the coffee, not the spreadsheet you open enthusiastically in January and quietly close by March. The shift is structural, not behavioral. It starts with understanding the difference between an expense and an asset, and being ruthlessly honest about which category most of your spending falls into. A car is not an asset. A wardrobe is not an asset. A subscription is not an asset. A property that generates income can be. A portfolio that compounds can be. A business that runs without you can be. The second shift is understand that the structure exists, that different income types are treated differently, and that operating exclusively as a salaried employee puts you at the least advantageous point in that structure by design. And the third shift is time, not time management, time horizon. The people who escape the treadmill are not necessarily smarter or higher earning. They started thinking in decades before you started thinking in months. They made boring, unglamorous, deeply unsexy financial decisions consistently, while everyone around them was optimizing for the lifestyle that matched the salary. None of this is fast. None of this is a hack, and none of it will feel satisfying in the way that a good purchase feels satisfying. But satisfaction and freedom are not the same thing. And you have been sold satisfaction for a long time instead. If this is landing for you, if you're doing the math right now and the numbers aren't adding up the way they should, subscribe to Joe versus the System. Because salary, tax, debt, lifestyle inflation, passive income, these are connected. They are all parts of the same structure. And I'm breaking down every piece of it one video at a time. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Here is the truth you are going to sit with. You did everything right. You studied. You qualified. You got the job. You got the better job. You negotiated. You performed. You showed up. You stayed late. You hit the targets and collected the reviews and climbed the rungs that were placed in front of you. And after all of that, after years of doing the correct thing inside the correct system, you are financially anxious at a salary that should, by all reasonable logic, have solved that. The problem is not that you failed. The problem is that you succeeded completely at a game that was never going to produce the outcome you thought you were playing for. You were playing earn more. The outcome of earn more is more earning. Not freedom, not security, not options, just more of the treadmill at a slightly higher speed, with a slightly nicer view. Your salary is not the answer. It was always just the beginning of someone else's question. And the question was, how do we keep you productive, compliant, and just comfortable enough to come back tomorrow? So far, the answer has been working perfectly. The only question left is whether you're going to keep answering it.